Alright, hey everybody. So for this next section, part 5, we're going to be talking about PvP now. And this is the section that Mr. Cleve asked for, so I'm going to dedicate this section to him. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to juggle between with siege offenses and siege defenses, as well as a focus on PvP. And when I mean we're focusing on PvP, I don't mean that we're stopping farming our dungeons. We will always be farming dungeons no matter what. So that's always going to be a pivotal part of our game. Okay, no matter what, we're always farming dungeons. Let me go ahead and grab these real quick. So when I talk about farming dungeons, same thing as before. The only difference is most dungeon farming units are not going to be on your top priority list. Let me give you a good example. This is my Dragons B10 team. I've been farming dragons for a year now, and I've been using these, right? But my next big goal is to start grinding down on giants. Now, the thing that I'm missing from my giants team is I'm missing the water twin, the water chakram dancer named Talia. Or is it the water boomer? Yeah, the water chakram named Talia. And obtaining Talia would allow me to have super speed giants teams. So Talia is on the top of my priority list to obtain, and for that reason, that's why I'm saving summoning stones to obtain a Talia, and she'll be in that rotation. So I'll be summoning during that rotation. That's my focus, right? My focus is Talia, and my other focus is going to be the Wind Dragon, Jemire, because Jemire will allow me to speed run R5. So those are my focuses, but in combination with my PvE focus, I also have a heavy PvP focus. So we're going to go into Siege and explain this. So my focus is, again, with my priority list. The priority list will always exist no matter what stage of the game you are on, okay? That's important to note. Early on in mid-game, your priority list is going to be focused on your units that help you do your TOA hard, the units that help you successfully 100% run one of these dungeons, and your units that will help you successfully run your Fire, Ice, and Wind Rift beast at least A+. Later on, your priority list will progress into maybe your Guild War offense list while you're doing maybe some coppers and some bulldozers, while also getting into your priority list of starting to get into the S, double S, triple S ranks for that, and triple S rank for that, and eventually getting into R4 and or R5. Those are the new monsters that will be on your priority list as you continue to progress. As you progress through there, you get to a point where Mr. Cleve is at, where he has successfully farmed most of the PvE content in the game. Maybe not Labyrinth, but Labyrinth is the lowest of the lowest priority, which is fine, right? And you get to this point in the game where it's time for you to start focusing on PvP. But the mindset of you being a person who's farmed for the last 3 years, the last 4 years, the last 2 years, it's hard for you to shift into a PvP mindset. And this is where we continue to hang on to that idea of the priority list being very important. Let me buy my scrolls while I'm talking. So the priority list being hugely important for being able to build your teams. Now, my biggest advice for you regarding how to build teams correctly is going to be stop building individual units, okay? Stop building individual units. What I mean by that is if you pull, let's say Annabelle is a great example, right? Everyone says Annabelle is OP, but is she really OP? Everyone will say that you need to build Annabelle because she's OP, and you're very lucky that you pulled her. But the reality is, people who do that build Annabelle, and they never use her correctly, and or if they do use her, they don't even know what the hell they're doing. So yes, you do want to build Annabelle, right? For sure. But you don't want to build her individually. You want to build Annabelle with a team. How many scrolls do I have now? I have 44 now. Yeah, I get a lot of scrolls every day. It's just a lot of farming. But, okay, so you want to build Annabelle in a team. let me just walk into this. That's not a good example. You don't want to bring Annabelle into that. In this team, it's pretty easy to take this one down. You can just use Rena. You put a Rena in there, like, where is she? I have 2 Renas built. Just throw Rena in there and you can double fire. You can pretty much kill them easily. Anyway, Annabelle, right? Annabelle is a great example because Annabelle is a monster that is hard to use, right? If you build Annabelle just because everybody tells you, oh, she's a really good unit, blah, 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 the reality is you are just building an individual unit. And that's a problem. What I build is teams, okay? You see I have 3 different coppers. You see I have 2 different bulldozers. I have 2 different Emesities. I have multiples of these units, but when I build a unit, like when I build Delphoy, I don't build Delphoy just to build Delphoy. I build Delphoy for the possibility that I may have to use her. Like in this third team, the third team that's already been used, that I'm clicking there, with the Kamoon Emesity Bulldozer, right? There may be a situation where instead of me needing the Kamoon to speed lead, I need the Delphoy in order to use Delphoy's defense leader skill of 40% defense so that I can use my copper and hit even harder. And or use my Delphoy to do something such as using Delphoy's second skill to reset a Theomars and using copper to kill the Theomars without the endure proc, right? Whatever the situation is, I have this Delphoy specifically built for one purpose, and that one purpose is to fit into that team. When you build teams, you need to find units that you will specifically build teams together and put those teams in your priority list. Now, here's the thing. It doesn't have to be like one unit that you pull, okay? Let me talk to you about groups of units now. We talked a lot about slow cleave, and personally for myself, I haven't used the slow cleave in a long time, but these are teams that have some of the highest success rates. You see that that's on my priority list. This is a 5-star unit that's going to be 6-starred eventually. That unit is on my priority list, right? Let me show you another unit that's on my priority list. Lure. It's only 4 stars, but Lure is nonetheless on my priority list. And another unit that has already been built, but is on my priority list, and I'll explain why. This is a team that synergizes well together, right? You want the Zinc to be there so that the Zinc is the primary damage dealer. You'll use this team against Garo in a Nat 4 Siege situation. So what I would have to do in this situation is I would have to 6-star the Lure, and I would have to 6-star the Zinc. All 3 of these units are my priority list. The reason why this is on my priority list is because this is part of my TOA hard team, the Basalt. But in a team like this, where you're giving up first turn so that you can go second and then one-shot the whole enemy team right after, I would need will runes on this unit. So I'm going to re-rune this unit during free rune removal to give it will runes, but also keep the violent runes that are currently on it. So I'm going to violent will this unit. The important thing is in TOA hard, speed tuning is important, so I'm going to try to aim for that same amount of speed or similar speed while giving it will runes, okay? And then I can use this team with the Lure and the Zinc, and I built a new package 3-man team for offense. That is how you build a siege team, okay? And these are packages of teams, okay? And in order for you to think like this, you need to either inherently have this or you have to develop it, this thought process where you can reverse engineer someone's defense and find a way to dissect and beat that defense. A team like this, like let's look at this team. You can, let me clarify something real quick. You can, so there's 2 ways to build monsters, right? And the first way that I've only talked about so far is building monsters in packages, right? Like, let's say Ganymede. Ganymede is another example. I don't even use him often, that's why his runes suck. But Ganymede is an example of, I will be using him next free rune removal. I'm going to re-rune him, but that's besides the point. Ganymede is another example. On his own, he is very hard to use as a solo unit, just like Annabelle. On her own, you pick the Annabelle and you throw her into a random team, you'll probably die. You need to pick teams that this will work. right? So, however, that is building three-man offenses, right? Just like the example that I just showed you. These are all examples of three-man offenses that I've specifically built that all three will work together. This is another example. These two and Fran. This team will work together, or you can vary it with that, with the Rakuni, with a Chasun. There are multiple examples like this that you can do, but specifically, I have it so that the Tessarion is speed tuned to move before the Theomars, and that specific speed tuning is what I use to specifically craft a team like this. I specifically chosen this, and this is a more basic example. Theo and Tessarion are pretty basic, right? However, there's another way. There's one other way to build teams, and that is to specifically build units that are individual units, okay? Certain units, for the most part, you don't do this unless you know what you're doing. Example, what does this team have? Let's see. There's Theomars there, Wusa, and Kamun. They have a lot of shields. They have a lot of buffs. What can you do? Most of us do not have El Sharon built specifically to team up with units. That being said, you can definitely build a team like this, for instance. This team would work if you were to specifically, like my El Sharion is insanely faster than my Theo, but I can definitely rerune my El Sharion to be one speed faster than Theo, so I could speed tune it correctly. However, in this example, I'm showing you three random units that I'm pulling together that are used to beat this team. So the second example is pretty much building individual units that will counter the enemy in situations. Another example is Juno. I don't have Juno specifically paired with any two other monsters. In this situation, I would bring Juno simply because there's Wusa there. Wusa will continually try to sleep the Juno, so Juno is going to tank that and continually wake herself up and heal your whole team. I don't specifically have two other units to pair up with Juno. However, I know that if I were to put Theomars there, Theomars and Juno would be okay. What else do I need? Now that I put those two units, I need a healer. Therefore, I would go ahead and pull in Chasun. This team would work despite me not specifically making this team in a pre-planned fashion, right? So, again, the first type of team is where I showed the Basalt, the Zinc, and the Lure. Those three units must be paired together, otherwise this team won't work. The second examples that I'm showing now are teams that you can kind of put together. And I mean, you could really go about this, like, this would be an example where if you pulled Annabelle, it would work, right? But you have to realize what role your units are playing in order for you to be able to do this. Another great example would be the unit Chilling. Chilling is a unit that would be able to strip consistently. Not only is Chilling good, I specifically have my Chilling ruined on Vampire. So he can actually, so he can actually continually fight Kamun, continually fight the Theomars. With Chilling's first skill being able to slow units, I don't specifically have Chilling in a composition on his own, but if I were to throw in a composition like this, this is not a pre-planned composition. But as long as I have the roles set, I have two different damage dealers being the Chilling and the Garo, and I have some form of sustain being Chilling's Vampire, Garo's Vampire, plus the Chasun being there, and of course Chilling also being able to strip the shields. This team would be hard to lose with, right? I mean, honestly, Garo's probably not the best example since he's fighting Wusa. He's going to keep on falling asleep. But you get the point of my example. So this is how you progress into PvP. You need to find your units that you can prioritize. I suggest starting off with, if you haven't already, most of our guildies keep on losing to defenses that can easily be beaten by Copper, easily being beaten by Bulldozers. These should be the first teams that you build for yourself. Is build Olivia, Bulldozer, Copper, or Olivia, Bulldozer, Rakuni. Build something that you can package together, and you can use those teams together. After you build those, you can start expanding to more I guess, adventurous options. Like, everyone on Reddit would agree that chilling is a great monster, but if you don't know how to pair chilling together, it's not gonna work, right? The other thing is, let me find an example. If I can find a really scary team that... I'm looking for a Molong, okay, we're not gonna find it. If we fight a Molong Illadrill Perna comp, what you can do is, against very common enemy compositions like Molong Illadrill Perna, which are not only really highly dangerous but also highly common, you can actually come up with prepackaged teams to deal with that. So let's pretend that's a Molong Illadrill Perna. How would I deal with Molong Illadrill Perna? Well, one thing that I would do is, this is also my priority list, I haven't got a chance to build it, is Nemesis Arnold. Nemesis Arnold would be able to deal with the Molong, right? Molong uses his Reckless Assault, and then Nemesis Arnold would move and then kill the Molong afterwards. That would be an example of something that you could use, but that's besides the point. Okay, so Molong Illadrill Perna, how would you deal with that? Well, first of all, you could use that to fight. Next, to deal with the Molong, you could use Harmonia. Where's Harmonia? It's already been used. Jeez. Okay. Pretend that's Harmonia. Right? And then what else would you need? Well, let me see. Molong Illadrill Perna. Some form of sustain aside from the so I think probably one of the best examples is just the Chasun. So in this example, we're fighting a 3-color defense. The Molong Illadrill Perna are all 3 different elements, and we're using our own 3 different elements as well. That way the enemy team won't focus down a specific unit, right? While on the other hand, if you see a Molong Illadrill Perna and you bring this specific team into fighting them, you will probably win, right? Because all you would have to do is wait for the Molong to Reckless Assault your Harmonia. Your Harmonia is going to switch HP with the Perna. After Perna gets HP switched, you get an attack buff from your Chasun, and then your Avaris will one-shot the Perna from that point using his skill 2, which is actually going to... Let's read. So his skill 2 does more damage. The damage increases as the HP becomes lower for the enemy. So switch HP using Harmonia so that the Perna's HP drops, and then using Avaris you can one-shot it because Perna's base defense is very low. This specific offense can be used every single time you see a Molong Illadrill Perna, because you know that you can counter that team as long as your runes don't have, like, as long as your rune quality doesn't have an insane disparity between both of them, you should be able to win. So that is how you progress into the PvP scene. Continue to farm your PvE stuff, but your priority list begins to shift, right? And again, to recap the video, your priority list begins in mid-game with beating TOA hard, priority list with finding a way to beat one of these dungeons specifically, finding a way to farm your reappraisal stones, getting into R5, making a priority list to do one R5 team, eventually making a priority list to do your second R5 team, right? And then as you're farming this for some time, starting your priority list with maybe siege guild war offense and siege offense, with finding a way to consistently win by using coppers and using bulldozers. So you're manufacturing 3-man teams at this point, and then eventually getting to the point where you begin manufacturing units that you think can eventually stand alone, but you can pair them together. Examples of that again would be in a situation like every single time I see Wusa, I put in Juno. Every single time you see Molong Illadrill Perna, you could put in Avaris, Harmonia, and Chasun, right? Those kinds of examples, right? Every single time you see a Kamun Theomars, maybe you would go and default into using Chilling, right? Because Chilling not only slows the Theo, which does less damage, but if you keep on hitting the Theo, the Kamun shield keeps on going on to Chilling. Kamun shield on Chilling plus Chilling's Vampire means Chilling is pretty much immortal unless the Theo procs like 4 times. Those kinds of team builds will help you progress into PvP and get you into a mindset where you can deconstruct what the opponent's defense is, find weaknesses in the opponent's defense, and eventually dissect their defense down using an offense that would be specifically tailored to help you win. When you get your win rates up in Siege offense and Guild War offense, you get a lot of guild points, which will allow you to buy more Mystic Scrolls, Legendary Scrolls, allow you to max out your flags, and all those other things. The final topic that we're going to talk about is going to be Siege defense. Okay, so before we end off this video, there are two more things I need to clarify, okay? So, getting back into Guild War and Siege, okay. Regarding your box's deficiencies, I mentioned priority list a lot, and this is, again, what I'm going to talk more about. When you look into my personal box, right, you notice that I have very few nat 5s that I can use offensively. For that reason, I have created a second Theomars. For that reason, I have created 3 coppers, right? For that reason, I have 2 Kalis, I have 2 bulldozers. For that reason, I have 3 Communes. All 3 of these Communes are ruined with crit damage so that they can do 40k damage on defense break. I have these units ruined the way that they are and built the way that they are because I do not have Leo, I do not have Perna, I do not have Chow, I do not have Leica. I don't have those units. You, on the other hand, if you have multiple Pernas, if you have multiple offensive nat 5s, you probably do not need to build 2 Theomars. You probably do not need to build 3 coppers, okay? So look at your box, figure out what you are lacking, and build from there. That is how you build your PvP offense priority list. Okay? The next thing that I want to talk about is confusing units. Okay? Let's say you have Rakan. Rakan, in my opinion, is a very confusing unit. Using him in offense is very strange, in my opinion. It's hard to use him in offense, right? But what can you do? I don't know the answer to this, but I know how to get the answer, okay? The answer is, I don't know the answer, but here's how you get to the answer. If you don't know how to use Rakan, you need to look it up, okay? You need to go onto Reddit and see what other people are doing with Rakan in offense. You need to go onto YouTube and look at what other people are doing with Rakan, so that way you can figure it out. One thing I know is Rakan has the ability to 1v3. He can kill 3 enemies if he is ruined on Vampire, right? Now, I don't recommend doing that if your runes aren't strong. That is one of the ways to use Rakan. Another way is to probably, I don't know, maybe Galleon Rakan, where Galleon can AoE defense break and then Rakan kills something. I don't know, I'm just spitballing. But the idea is, if you don't know how to utilize the unit, you need to look it up, okay? That's the same goes for Annabelle for me. Annabelle for me is a unit that I personally have not mastered using. I've used her more often now, but not as much as I would like. Typically, when I look up Annabelle, I see Annabelle being used with Leica, the Fire Dragon Knight. Unfortunately, I don't have a Leica, but what I can deduce from this is that if I pair up Annabelle with Theomars, I could probably get some good results. Based off of that kind of thought process, you need to go and look things up. YouTube is a great resource, but not only that, this is the second thing I want to talk about now, is looking things up. You need to look up good YouTubers. Okay, there are a lot of random G3 YouTubers out there that will upload videos. They might not even have commentary. They will just upload videos of them doing G3 Siege wars. Just look up G3 Siege battle, guild battle, or whatever on YouTube. You will find random YouTubers with only like 1,000 or 2,000 subscribers with very few views on them. But if you look at how they build their offenses, oops, loud sound. If you look at how they build their offenses, it will give you great ideas. Okay, let me show you. This offense here was not my creation. This offense here basically is engineered to have Q-Bird go first, right? Q-Bird goes first, And then because of Q-Bird's attack buff, Kali goes right afterwards, and Kali one-shots the enemy. After Kali one-shots the enemy, Katarina, now only having 2 different targets, can use Katarina's third skill and kill only 2 targets. The science behind this, I guess, is instead of having Katarina go first to fight 3 enemies, where her damage is hard for her to kill something, if you have Kali outspeed the Katarina only has to shoot 2 enemies now. This idea was not my creation. I found this idea by looking it up. Okay, I was not specifically looking up a Katarina offense. If you have a Rakan and you specifically need to look it up, definitely specifically look up Rakan offenses. But while also doing that, you also need to look up just miscellaneous things where you're watching G3 players attack. You will find random comps that they use that are actually things that you never even thought about. Like this offense, for instance, I didn't even think about this, right? Another example, I found this on YouTube. This was not my idea. Where is it? I showed it earlier. Basalt's lure and where is it? Let me pull the comp up so that we can talk about it. Where's my zinc? Okay. This over here, I found this actually on Reddit, not YouTube. I found this on Reddit, and I wasn't specifically looking for a comp that used lure or used zinc. I simply found this comp on Reddit, and basically what he said is he uses this to fight against Garo. In Nat 4 bases, he will use the lure, then he'll use the Basalt to defense buff, and then he'll use the zinc to one-shot the Garo. He showed his runes are pretty bad, and it still works really well. So, me randomly looking stuff up on Reddit, me randomly looking stuff up on YouTube, I will find good information. Not only that, but there are mainstream YouTubers that will have great resources. And you need to look these things up. For instance, Childish Plays, he has a series called Educate and Dominate, where he invites high-ranking guests to talk about different ideas. One of his videos that I just watched was on miscellaneous runes. How do you use a slot 6 resistance rune? How do you use a slot 6 accuracy rune? How do you use a slot 4 crit rate rune? The difference between using a slot 2 % attack versus using a slot 2 speed rune, those kinds of things on your Theomars. He talks about these concepts that most people wouldn't find. You can find this maybe if you Google it on Reddit and look stuff up there, or you can watch Educate and Dominate and find random topics like this. Topics that you didn't even know that needed debate. You'll find topics like that and you'll become enlightened. For instance, for myself, I have been runing my Juno to be tanky. She has an HP rune here, right? But based off of what he said in that Educate and Dominate video, next time I rune Juno, I'm going to give her a slot 4 crit rate rune so that she can cycle her turns insanely fast, because she gets 45 or she gets half of her attack bar each time she triple crits. So if I get 100 crit rate, then that actually translates into more speed, and then the Juno will keep on moving like crazy, right? Ideas like this, I did not even know that I needed to improve my Juno. But after watching this video, I have a different outlook on Juno now. So there are instances where when you're looking up information, first of all, you need to look up specific information. If you don't know how to use your Rakan, if you don't know how to use Leo, if you don't know how to use Annabelle, you need to look those up. But secondly, you also need to look up information, or you just need to watch Summoner's War. You need to watch the right avenues of Summoner's War. The best resources are Math Plus Games, Sean B, which is a he's like a really popular YouTuber now. Sample Text, he's also a really popular YouTuber. Childish Games, great guy to watch. And also random G3 players that you can find just searching up G3 Guild War, that kind of stuff. Watching all of these things put together will give you a lot of great information. On top of that, you can also watch G3 or Guardian RTA players. A lot of the things that work in RTA will also work in Siege offense. Putting these 3 things, or putting all this stuff together, this is how you build a priority list to get into PvP. Okay? Remember, The number one thing in this game is always PvE. Always farming is number one. Always remember that. But after you farmed enough, you will have enough runes to dedicate to PvP. And only then will you start be able to use these kinds of teams and these kinds of ideas to progress you onwards. That is all I have to say about Siege offense, okay? I hope you've watched to the end, because typically at the end of these videos, that's really when all my ideas come out and I have to put it all out there. Next part, we are going to talk about Siege defense.